Taesung wiped the sweat from his forehead as he crawled through the narrow maintenance tunnel. The air recycler in Section D had failed again, and if he didn't fix it soon, 20 miners would suffocate in their sleep. This was the third major system failure this month on Belt 47, the remote mining colony where he worked as an engineer. He was 28 years old and had been fixing broken equipment in space for 5 years. Earth's expansion into the asteroid belt was rushed and cheap. The companies wanted profit, not safety. Taesung had learned to make miracles happen with spare parts and determination. He had survived situations that killed other engineers. Equipment explosions, oxygen leaks, electrical fires. Each time he had figured out a solution when there shouldn't have been one. The tunnel was tight, but Taesung squeezed through until he reached the damaged unit. He pulled out his tools and began working. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, disconnecting old circuits and rewiring new pathways. It wasn't pretty, but it would work. That's when the alarms started screaming. Taesung hit his head on the tunnel ceiling as he jerked in surprise. Red emergency lights flooded the passage. The colony's defense siren meant only one thing: they were under attack. But that was impossible. Belt 47 was in the middle of nowhere. Pirates avoided colonies this poor, and Earth's military ships patrolled nearby routes. He scrambled backward through the tunnel, his heart pounding. When he emerged into the main corridor, chaos greeted him. Miners were running in every direction, shouting and panicking. Through the observation windows, Taesung saw ships, not human ships. These vessels were smooth and organic-looking, like they had been grown instead of built. They were massive, dwarfing the small transport ships that serviced the colony. "Everyone to the shelter pods," someone screamed. Taesung ran with the crowd, but his engineer's mind was already analyzing the situation. The shelter pods were old and barely functional. If these aliens wanted to take the colony, those pods wouldn't stop them. He needed a better plan. The aliens cut through the colony's outer hull like it was paper. Taesung heard the screeching sound of metal being torn apart. Then he saw them. The creatures that poured through the breach were tall and covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved with military precision, using weapons that fired blue energy bolts. Several miners who tried to fight back simply collapsed, paralyzed but alive. Taesung ducked behind a support beam as one of the aliens passed close by. He could see its face through the helmet's transparent section. It had 4 eyes arranged vertically, and a mouth that looked like it had too many teeth. The creature spoke in a language of clicks and hisses that made no sense to human ears. They were being captured, not killed. That meant these aliens wanted something from humans. That thought terrified Taesung more than death would have. The aliens herded the colonists into the cargo bay like cattle. Taesung counted 43 humans, including himself. Most were crying or in shock. A few tried to reason with their captors, but the aliens ignored all attempts at communication. They simply forced everyone into containment fields, glowing barriers of energy that prevented movement. Taesung found himself pressed against 5 other miners in a small containment cell. The energy field buzzed against his skin, not painful but deeply uncomfortable. He tried to push through it once and felt his muscles lock up completely. Fighting was pointless. The alien ship they were loaded onto was enormous inside. The walls were made of some kind of living metal that seemed to breathe and pulse. The lighting was harsh and blue, making everything look cold and sterile. Taesung noticed that the technology around him was incredibly advanced compared to human equipment, yet something about it seemed strange. Everything was perfectly smooth and seamless, but also rigid and unchanging. Hours passed, maybe days. Time was hard to track in the featureless holding cells. The aliens gave them food and water, but no explanations. Taesung spent his time observing everything he could. He noticed patterns in how the guards moved, weaknesses in their attention spans, and details about the technology keeping them prisoner. The containment field, for example, was powered by a small generator mounted on the wall. It had 3 connection points and what looked like a cooling system to prevent overheating. If someone could overload the cooling system, the generator might shut down automatically to prevent damage. Taesung started looking around his cell for anything useful. The aliens had taken obvious tools and weapons, but they hadn't searched thoroughly. In the corner, he found a broken piece of metal from someone's belt buckle. In another spot, there was a small wire that had fallen from someone's jacket. It wasn't much, but it was something. Over the next day, Taesung worked in secret. He used the metal piece to scratch away at the wall near an electrical conduit. The living metal was tough, but it could be damaged with enough patience. He created a tiny hole that exposed the wiring beneath. Then he carefully used the wire to create a short circuit in the electrical system. Nothing dramatic happened. That was the point. Taesung wasn't trying to break free yet. He was testing the system, learning how it worked. When he created the short circuit, he noticed a tiny flicker in the containment field. It had lasted less than a second, but it proved the field was connected to the ship's main power grid. That gave him an idea. Taesung spent more time watching the aliens. They checked on the prisoners every few hours, following the same routine each time. They were efficient but predictable. Their technology was amazing, but they used it the same way every single time. There was no creativity, no adaptation. That was their weakness. He began working on a communication device using the broken metal, the wire, and a small battery he managed to pull from the light fixture in the ceiling. It was dangerous work. One wrong move and he'd electrocute himself. But Taesung had fixed broken equipment in worse conditions. It took 3 more days, but he finally completed his makeshift device. It was crude and could only send a simple repeating signal, but that might be enough. He activated it and hoped anyone would hear the distress call. The device beeped quietly, transmitting its message into the void of space. Taesung hid it in the corner of the cell and waited. He had no idea if his plan would work, but sitting and doing nothing wasn't in his nature. 2 days later, the alien ship suddenly changed course. Alarms rang through the vessel and the guards became agitated. Through the small window in the holding area, Taesung saw other ships approaching. These were different from the ones that had captured them. They were elegant and glowing with soft light. Something was happening. Someone had heard his signal. Taesung allowed himself a small smile. Maybe they weren't doomed after all. The alien ship shuddered as the new vessels surrounded it. Taesung pressed his face against the small window, trying to see what was happening. The new ships were beautiful in a way that the Vraltek transport wasn't. They looked like they had been crafted by artists instead of soldiers. Their hulls shimmered with colors that changed as they moved. The guards became nervous. Taesung could tell by the way they moved more quickly, their weapons held tighter. Something about these new arrivals scared them. That was interesting. It meant there was a power structure out here in space, and the creatures who had captured his colony weren't at the top of it. Through the walls, Taesung heard voices speaking in multiple alien languages. The universal translator the Vraltek had installed in the holding area started working, converting the sounds into broken English. "This is Princess Heirin of the Kilvar Empire. You have entered our protected space. State your business or face consequences." The voice was firm and commanding. It belonged to someone used to being obeyed. Taesung felt a small flutter of hope. Maybe these Kilvar people were better than his current captors. The Vraltek commander responded with clicks and hisses that the translator converted. "We are conducting legal salvage operations. These creatures are from an unprotected world. They have no rights under galactic law." "I detected a distress signal from your ship," the princess replied. "Salvage does not call for help." There was a long pause. Then the Vraltek commander ordered his guards to bring the prisoners forward. Taesung and the other humans were pulled from their cells and forced down the corridor toward what looked like a meeting room. The containment fields around them shifted, moving with them like invisible cages. The room they entered was large and filled with holographic displays. On one screen, Taesung saw her for the first time. Princess Heirin was humanoid, but definitely not human. Her skin had a faint purple tint and seemed to shimmer slightly in the light. She had large eyes that were completely silver, with no visible pupils. Her hair was long and moved as if it was underwater, even though she was clearly in a normal atmosphere. She wore elegant robes that looked like they were made of liquid metal. She was beautiful in a way that made Taesung's heart skip a beat, despite everything else happening around him. The Vraltek commander was a massive creature twice as tall as any human. His armor was covered in weapons and scars. He gestured at the prisoners with one clawed hand. "These are the creatures," he said. "We found them on an unregistered colony. They have no sponsor race and no protection. Under Article 47 of the Salvage Accords, they belong to whoever claims them first." Princess Heirin's silver eyes scanned the group of humans. Taesung saw something in her expression shift when she looked at them. Was it curiosity, pity? He couldn't tell. "They are clearly intelligent beings," she said. "They should be returned to their homeworld." "Intelligence is not the requirement for protection," the commander argued. They must have a sponsor in the Galactic Council or sufficient technology to defend their territory. These creatures have neither. They are ours to study. The word study made Taesung's blood run cold. He had seen how the Vireltech treated their equipment. Everything was done with brutal efficiency. If they studied humans the same way, it would mean dissection and experimentation. The commander ordered his scientists forward. Two smaller Vireltech approached Taesung, reaching for him with mechanical tools. He jerked backward, but the containment field held him in place. "We will demonstrate their potential value," the commander said. "Their biology shows promising resistance to certain toxins. Their neural structure is unusual. We believe they may have military applications." The scientists attached devices to Taesung's head. Pain exploded through his skull as they activated some kind of scanner. It felt like his brain was being squeezed and pulled apart at the same time. He screamed, unable to stop himself. Through the pain, he heard Princess Hayren's voice. "Stop this immediately. You are in Kilvar space. You will follow our laws." "This is legal examination of salvage," the commander replied. "Nothing more." The pain increased. Taesung felt like he was being torn apart from the inside, but even through the agony, his mind kept working. He noticed the device attached to his head had 3 connection points. He recognized the energy signature. It was using electromagnetic pulses to scan his brain. If he could create a feedback loop in the device, it might overload. Taesung forced his shaking hand upward. The containment field resisted, but he pushed harder. His muscles screamed in protest, but he kept moving. His fingers reached one of the connection points on the device. He grabbed it and twisted hard. The device sparked and exploded in a shower of blue energy. The pain stopped instantly. The containment field around Taesung flickered and died. For a moment, he was free. The Vireltech scientist stumbled backward in shock. Taesung collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His head felt like it was splitting open, but he was free. He looked up and saw Princess Hayren staring at him with wide eyes. She had seen him break free. She had seen him adapt and overcome technology he had never encountered before, and Taesung saw something change in her expression. The curiosity became intense focus. The guards rushed forward to restrain Taesung again, but the princess raised her hand. "Wait," everyone stopped. The authority in her voice was absolute. She stepped closer to the holographic display, studying Taesung more carefully. "How did you do that?" she asked. The translator made her words sound like music. Taesung looked up at her, still gasping. "Electromagnetic feedback. The device had a flaw in its design. I exploited it. You understood our technology after a few seconds of exposure. Your technology isn't that different from ours. Just more advanced, but the principles are the same. Energy needs a path to flow. Interrupt the path and the system fails." Princess Hayren was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to the Vireltech commander. "I invoke the right of imperial claim." The room went completely silent. The commander's 4 eyes widened in what looked like shock. "Your Highness, you cannot be serious," he said. "I am completely serious. This creature has demonstrated exceptional value. Under the ancient laws of the Kilvar Empire, any being showing unique abilities can be claimed by royalty for the service of the Empire. I claim this human. Stop harming the human." Princess Hayren's voice rang out with commanding force. "He's mine now." The Vireltech commander's face twisted with anger, but he couldn't argue. Galactic law was clear. The right of imperial claim was absolute. If a member of the Kilvar royal family invoked it, no one could refuse. "You are making a mistake, princess," the commander hissed. "These creatures are dangerous. They adapt too quickly. They should be controlled or eliminated, not protected." "Your opinion is noted," Princess Hayren replied coldly. "Now release all the humans to my custody, or I will consider your refusal an act of war against the Kilvar Empire." The threat hung in the air like a blade. Taesung watched as the commander struggled with his decision. Finally, the Vireltech leader gestured to his guards. "Release them. All of them." The containment fields around the other humans dissolved. 43 confused and terrified colonists suddenly found themselves free. They huddled together, not sure what was happening. Princess Hayren's ships moved closer, and transport beams began moving the humans from the Vireltech vessel to her flagship. Taesung felt the strange sensation of his body being converted to energy and reassembled elsewhere. When his vision cleared, he was standing in a beautiful chamber with walls made of crystal. Princess Hayren appeared beside him, having transported over as well. Up close, she was even more striking. She stood a head taller than Taesung, and her presence filled the room with quiet authority. "What is your name?" she asked. "Taesung," he replied. His voice sounded small in the vast chamber. "Taesung," she repeated, testing the sounds. "I am Hei-Rin, third princess of the Kilvar Empire. You belong to me now. Do you understand?" He wanted to argue. He wanted to demand his freedom. But Taesung was practical above all else. This princess had just saved him from torture and death. Whatever she wanted from him, it had to be better than what the Vreltek had planned. "I understand," he said. "Thank you for saving us." She looked surprised by his gratitude. "You are not angry?" Most beings would resist being claimed. Most beings weren't about to be dissected, Taesung replied. "You saved our lives. I'm grateful. But I do have one question." "Ask." "What do you want from me?" Princess Hei-Rin smiled, and it was like watching stars come out at night. "I want you to show me how humans think. I want to understand how you solved a problem in seconds that would take our best engineers days to figure out. I want to know if what I suspect about your species is true." "What do you suspect?" "That humans might be the most dangerous and most valuable species in the entire galaxy," she said softly. "And I want to find out which one is correct." The journey to Kilvar Prime took 3 days. Taesung spent that time in a comfortable room that was larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls could change color based on his mood, and the bed adjusted itself to his body perfectly. It was luxury beyond anything he had ever experienced. But he was still a prisoner, even if it was a gilded cage. Princess Hei-Rin visited him several times during the journey. She asked him questions about Earth, about human history, about how he learned to fix broken machines. Taesung answered honestly. He saw no benefit in lying, and besides, she was genuinely curious. There was no cruelty in her questions, only fascination. "Your species fought wars against each other?" she asked during one visit. "Yes, many wars. We're not proud of it, but you survived. You adapted. You built civilizations from the ruins of old ones." She tilted her head, studying him. "Most species in the galaxy find their comfortable place and stay there for thousands of years. Humans seem unable to stay still. We call it progress," Taesung said. "Or sometimes we call it curiosity. We always want to know what's next. What's beyond the horizon. That curiosity could save you or destroy you," Hei-Rin observed. "Probably both," Taesung admitted with a slight smile. When the ship finally arrived at Kilvar Prime, Taesung pressed his face against the window like a child. The planet was enormous, covered in glittering cities that looked like they were made of gems. Massive towers reached into the atmosphere, connected by bridges of light. Ships flew in organized patterns, so many that they looked like schools of fish swimming through water. 300 worlds answer to the Kilvar Empire, Hei-Rin said from behind him. "This is the heart of our civilization. We have existed for 50,000 years. Your entire species' recorded history would be a brief moment in our timeline." The words were meant to humble him, but Taesung felt something else. 50,000 years, and their technology looked almost the same as it had 3 days ago. Everything was beautiful and functional, but there was no innovation, no change. They had been doing the same things for so long that they had forgotten how to do anything different. "It's amazing," he said diplomatically. They landed at the Imperial Palace, which was less a building and more a city unto itself. Crystal spires rose into the clouds, and gardens filled with alien plants covered every surface. Taesung was given new clothes to wear, made from fabric that adjusted to his size and kept him at a perfect temperature. Then guards escorted him to the throne room. The throne room was vast enough to make Taesung feel like an insect. Hundreds of Kilvar nobles stood in organized rows, all wearing elaborate robes and jewelry. At the far end, seated on a throne made of living crystal, was Emperor Young-Ho. He looked ancient and tired, but his eyes were sharp as they focused on Taesung. Princess Hei-Rin stood beside her father, and Taesung noticed other figures near the throne. One was a younger male Kilvar wearing military armor decorated with medals. His expression was cold and dismissive as he looked at Taesung. "Present the human," Emperor Young-Ho commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber. Guards pushed Taesung forward until he stood in the center of the room. All eyes were on him. He felt like a specimen in a laboratory, which wasn't far from the truth. "Third Princess Hei-Rin," the Emperor said, "you have invoked the right of imperial claim for this creature. Explain your reasoning." Hei-Rin stepped forward. "Father, I have studied the human species. They possess a unique quality that no other known species has. They are generalists capable of extreme adaptation. While our people have evolved for specific purposes, humans evolved to survive any environment, any challenge. This one demonstrated the ability to understand and manipulate our technology after minimal exposure. I believe humans could provide the innovation our empire needs. The male in military armor laughed. It was a cruel sound. Sister, you have brought us a pet and call it a solution to our problems. The human species is barely capable of interstellar travel. They have no special abilities, no natural weapons, no exceptional strength. What good is adaptation when you are weak in every measurable way? Prince Daehyun, Heirin said coolly. Perhaps you would like to test that theory? The Emperor raised a hand. Enough. If this human is as valuable as you claim, Heirin, then prove it. We will conduct tests. If the creature fails, you will release your claim and face consequences for wasting the court's time. Heirin bowed. As you command, Father. Over the next 2 days, Tae-sung was subjected to a series of tests designed to evaluate his worth. The first test was physical combat. He was placed in an arena against a trained Kilvar warrior. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The warrior was faster, stronger, and had natural armor plating on his skin. Tae-sung ended up on the ground with a blade at his throat, but even in defeat he learned. He noticed the warrior's patterns, the way he telegraphed his moves. If Tae-sung had a weapon, if he had more time to study his opponent, he could find weaknesses. The second test was technical knowledge. They gave him a standard Kilvar engineering exam. He failed spectacularly. The questions assumed knowledge of systems and technologies that humans had never developed. Their entire approach to engineering was different from Earth's methods. But when they showed him a broken device and asked him to fix it, Tae-sung succeeded. He didn't understand the technology's purpose, but he could see how energy flowed through it. He identified the break in the circuit and created a bypass using spare parts. The device worked again. The Kilvar engineers were baffled. That solution shouldn't work, one of them said. It violates 3 principles of proper energy management. But it does work, Tae-sung replied. Sometimes the solution doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to function. The third test was strategic thinking. They put him in a simulation room where he had to command a fleet of ships against an enemy force. Tae-sung had never commanded a ship before, let alone a fleet. He was expected to fail. Instead, he won. The simulation assumed both sides would follow standard military tactics. Formations, honor codes, predictable attack patterns. Tae-sung ignored all of that. He used guerrilla tactics. He sent small ships to harass the enemy from unexpected angles. He faked retreats to lure enemies into traps. He used psychological warfare, making the simulation enemy think he was crazy and unpredictable. The enemy AI couldn't adapt to his strategy because it was designed to fight logical, traditional battles. Tae-sung won by refusing to play by the rules everyone else followed. Prince Daehyun watched the results with growing anger. This proves nothing. The human used primitive tactics that wouldn't work in real combat. Those primitive tactics won every engagement, Heirin pointed out. An old Kilvar woman stepped forward from the crowd of nobles. She wore simple robes and carried herself with quiet dignity. Your Majesty, may I speak? Emperor Young-ho nodded. Lady Bora, your wisdom is always welcome. Lady Bora approached Tae-sung, studying him with eyes that seemed to see through him. I have spent my life studying species evolution and galactic history. I recognize what this human represents. He is a variable state being. Murmurs spread through the court. The term meant something to them, though Tae-sung didn't understand it. Explain for those unfamiliar with the concept, the Emperor commanded. Most species evolve to fill specific environmental niches, Lady Bora said. We Kilvar evolved on a stable world with abundant resources. We became efficient, organized, and long-lived. The Vraltek evolved on a harsh world with many predators. They became strong and militaristic. Every species follows this pattern. We find what works and we perfect it over millions of years. She gestured at Tae-sung. Humans evolved differently. Their world constantly changed. Ice ages, climate shifts, competition with multiple other intelligent species. They never had time to settle into a single niche. Instead, they evolved to adapt to any situation. They became generalists. This makes them weak in any specific area, but infinitely flexible. What does this mean practically? Prince Daehyun demanded. It means humans can learn any skill, fill any role, and find solutions to problems we cannot even imagine. Lady Bora replied. It also means they are dangerous. A species without limits is a species without predictability. They could become our greatest allies or our worst enemies. The throne room fell silent. Taesung felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on him. He was being judged not as an individual but as a representative of his entire species. Finally, Emperor Young-ho spoke. The human has demonstrated potential. Princess Heirin's claim is validated. However, we will monitor this situation closely. If the human or his species proves to be a threat, measures will be taken. Relief flooded through Taesung, but it was mixed with fear. He had just become a test case for whether humans would be accepted or eliminated by galactic society. As the court dismissed, Princess Heirin approached him. You did well, she said quietly. I'm still alive, Taesung replied. I'll count that as a victory. There are people here who want you to fail, Harin warned. My cousin Dae-hyun sees you as an embarrassment to me. There are others who fear what humans represent. You must be careful. I'm starting to realize that everywhere I go, someone wants to either study me or kill me, Taesung said. It's exhausting. Heirin's expression softened. I know this is difficult for you, but I truly believe humans could help us. My empire has been Princess Heirin led Taesung through corridors that grew less ornate as they walked. They passed through security checkpoints where guards bowed deeply to the princess but watched Taesung with suspicion. Finally, they reached a door that looked different from the others. It was made of simple metal instead of crystal, and it had multiple locks. What I'm about to show you must remain secret, Heirin said. If my father knew, if the court discovered this, I would be stripped of my title and possibly executed. Do you understand? Taesung nodded slowly. I understand. But why trust me with this? Because you have no loyalty to anyone here except perhaps to me since I saved your life. You're not part of court politics or ancient feuds. You're an outsider, which makes you the only person I can truly trust right now. She opened the door and they entered a large laboratory. Inside, Taesung saw equipment he recognized from Earth alongside alien technology. 3 people worked at different stations and they all looked up when Heirin entered. Everyone, this is Taesung, the human I told you about, Heirin announced. Taesung? These are members of what we call the Progress Movement. We work in secret to try to advance our empire beyond its current stagnation. A Kilvar male with kind eyes approached and offered a gesture that seemed like a handshake. I am Dr. Jiwoo. I study alien biology, specifically the potential for genetic advancement. Welcome. A female Kilvar in military uniform nodded at him. Commander Hyunsu, I lead a unit of soldiers who believe our empire's military has become too rigid and traditional. We're interested in new tactics and strategies. The third person was human. She was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. She rushed forward and grabbed Taesung's hands. You're really human, she said in English. Real English, not the translated version. I'm Dr. Min Seo. I've been here for 2 years. They captured my research vessel, and Princess Heirin saved us just like she saved you. Taesung felt emotions surge through him. He wasn't alone. There were other humans here, people who understood what he was going through. Heirin let them talk for a few minutes, then gently interrupted. I know you have questions, Taesung, but time is limited. Let me explain what we're trying to accomplish here. She led him to a large display showing a map of the Kilvar Empire. For 50,000 years, my people have ruled these stars. We have maintained peace, prosperity, and stability. But stability has become stagnation. We haven't had a major technological advancement in 3,000 years. Our military tactics haven't changed in 5,000. We are slowly dying as a civilization, and most people don't even realize it. Why? Taesung asked. You have resources, intelligence, technology. We have comfort, Heirin replied. Every species in our empire has found its place. The Kilvar rule and administrate. The Vreltek provide military strength. The Torvan handle trade and commerce. Everyone has their role, and changing roles is nearly impossible. Our entire society is built on the idea that things should stay as they are. Dr. Jiwoo added, innovation is actively discouraged. Anyone who proposes a new idea is seen as disruptive. The last scientist who tried to publish research on improving our energy systems was exiled. That's why humans are so important, Heirin continued. Your species represents something we've lost or perhaps never had, the ability to change, to grow, to adapt. I don't want to just study humans. I want to learn from them. I want to use human innovation to revitalize our empire. That's a dangerous goal, Taesung observed. Change threatens people in power. Which is why we work in secret, Commander Hyun-soo said. The court sees humans as curiosities or threats, not potential teachers. If they knew what we were really planning, they would crush this movement and possibly eliminate all humans to prevent contamination of our culture. Taesung felt cold fear settle in his stomach. So I'm not just representing myself in that court. I'm representing whether my entire species lives or dies. I'm sorry, Haerin said softly. I wish I could have explained this before bringing you here. But there was no safe way. The Viraltech would have killed you. Bringing you to the court was the only option. Over the next few weeks, Taesung fell into a strange routine. During the day, he lived in the palace as Princess Haerin's claimed human. He attended court functions where nobles stared at him like he was an exotic animal. He endured tests and evaluations from scientists who wanted to understand human biology. He answered endless questions about Earth culture and history. But at night, he worked in the secret laboratory with Haerin's group. They taught him about galactic technology, and he showed them human engineering principles. Dr. Minseo helped him understand the political situation better. Commander Hyun-soo trained him in basic self-defense using techniques that worked with human physiology rather than against it, and Haerin spent hours with him, discussing philosophy, history, and the future. Taesung found himself looking forward to these conversations more than anything else. Despite the vast differences between them, they understood each other. Both were outsiders in their own worlds. Both wanted to change systems that seemed unchangeable. One night, as they worked on redesigning an energy distribution system, Haerin asked him a personal question. Do you have family on Earth? Someone waiting for you? Taesung shook his head. My parents died when I was young. I have a sister, but we haven't spoken in years. Different paths in life. I spent most of my time working in space, away from Earth. The mining colony was the closest thing I had to a home. I'm sorry. That sounds lonely. It was, but it taught me to be self-reliant. He looked at her. What about you? You're royalty, but you seem just as alone. Haerin smiled sadly. Being royalty doesn't mean having friends. It means having allies, rivals, and enemies. My father is distant, focused on maintaining his power. My cousin Daehyun hates me because I represent a progressive faction he opposes. The courtiers pretend to respect me while plotting against me. The only real companions I have are the people in this room. That does sound lonely, Taesung admitted. Their eyes met and something passed between them. Understanding. Connection. For a moment, it felt like the gulf between their species didn't matter at all. The moment was interrupted by Dr. Jiwoo calling them over. I found something disturbing in the palace computer network. They gathered around his display. Lines of code scrolled past too fast for Taesung to read, but Dr. Jiwoo's expression was grave. Someone has been accessing the files we've created about human abilities. They're also monitoring energy consumption in this laboratory. They know someone is working here without authorization. Can you trace who's doing it? Haerin demanded. The access codes are scrambled, but the pattern matches someone with high-level clearance. Possibly Minister Sang-woo or someone in his department. Haerin's face went pale. Sang-woo is my father's most trusted advisor. If he's investigating us, we're in serious danger. There's more, Dr. Jiwoo continued. I found evidence of communication between someone in the palace and Viraltech officials. They're sharing information about Taesung's abilities. The Viraltech are building a case that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Taesung felt his blood run cold. They want to justify genocide. Not just genocide, Commander Hyun-soo said grimly. They want to make it look necessary and legal. If they can prove humans are a threat to galactic stability, they can petition the Council for extermination rights. And with evidence from inside the Kilvar court, they might succeed. We need to find out who the traitor is, Haerin said, and we need to do it quickly. Over the next several days, Taesung worked with Dr. Jiwoo to trace the security breaches. He used his human perspective to find patterns the Kilvar scientist missed. Alien systems were designed to prevent alien thinking, but human intuition worked differently. He discovered the evidence hidden in power fluctuations and timing patterns. Someone was accessing secure systems during specific times when guards changed shifts and monitoring was lightest. That person had access to the palace's deepest systems, which meant they were either royalty or someone very close to the emperor. The trail led directly to Minister Sang-woo's office. We need to tell your father. Taesung urged Haerin. She shook her head. Sang-woo has been my father's advisor for 200 years. My father trusts him completely. If I accuse him without absolute proof, it will look like I'm trying to undermine the throne. I could be charged with treason. Then what do? We gather more evidence. We catch him in the act. And we hope we can do it before he destroys us first. That night, Tae-sung couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the humans back at the colony, about Earth, about billions of people who had no idea their existence was being debated by alien politicians. He thought about the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He also thought about Hae-rin, about how much she was risking to help his species. She could have ignored humans entirely. She could have let the Vraltek do whatever they wanted. Instead, she had claimed him, protected him, and was now fighting against her own empire's power structure to give humans a chance. Why? What did she gain from this that was worth the risk? Unless it wasn't about gain at all. Unless she was doing it back. The diplomatic reception was one of the grandest events of the year in the Imperial Palace. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the enormous ballroom to celebrate a treaty renewal between the Kilvar Empire and the Torvan Trade Federation. Princess Hae-rin was required to attend, and she had insisted that Tae-sung accompany her. "Stay close to me," she whispered as they entered the ballroom. "There will be people here who see you as an opportunity to hurt me politically." Tae-sung wore formal clothes adapted for humans, though they still felt strange on his body. The fabric was too smooth, and it adjusted to his movements in ways that made him feel like he was wearing liquid instead of cloth. Around him, aliens of every description mingled and talked. Some were humanoid like the Kilvar. Others were completely different, with multiple limbs, unusual body structures, or forms that seemed to defy physics. A group of Vraltek diplomats stood in one corner, and Tae-sung felt their 4 eyes tracking him across the room. They knew what he was. They had wanted to dissect him, and now he was being displayed at a formal party like a trophy. The anger in their gazes was palpable. Minister Sang-woo approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was an old Kilvar, even by their long-lived standards. His face was lined with age, and his movements were slow but deliberate. "Princess Hae-rin, how wonderful to see you," he said smoothly. "And your human pet. How fascinating that you brought it to such an important event." "Tae-sung is not a pet," Hae-rin replied coldly. "He is under my protection, and represents a potential alliance between our empire and his species." Of course, Sang-woo said. "I meant no offense. In fact, I find humans quite interesting. Perhaps your human would like to try some of the refreshments? We have items from dozens of worlds here tonight." He gestured to a table filled with strange foods and drinks. Tae-sung's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since morning, and the food looked appealing despite its alien nature. "Go ahead," Hae-rin said. "I'll join you shortly. Minister Sang-woo and I need to discuss some matters." Tae-sung moved toward the food table, but something in the minister's smile bothered him. It was too friendly, too eager. He pretended to examine the food while staying close enough to hear Hae-rin and Sang-woo's conversation. "Your father is concerned about your projects, Princess," the minister said quietly. "There are rumors you're working on unapproved research." "I conduct many research projects," Hae-rin replied neutrally. "All within my rights as a member of the royal family." "Yes, but some might see your interest in humans as dangerous. The Vraltek have filed concerns with the council. They claim humans are unpredictable and potentially violent. If you're seen as championing a dangerous species, it could damage your standing at court." "I appreciate your concern, Minister, but my standing is my own affair." Sang-woo's smile faded. "Be careful, Princess. Not everyone at court wishes you well. Some might even arrange accidents to remove obstacles to their power." The threat was barely veiled. Tae-sung's hand tightened on the glass he was holding. He turned to see Hae-rin's face had gone pale but determined. "Thank you for the warning, Minister. Now if you'll excuse me." As Sang-woo walked away, Tae-sung rejoined Hae-rin. "Did he just threaten you?" "He did, and he wanted you to hear it. He's trying to intimidate both of us." Tae-sung picked up a small pastry from the table and was about to bite into it when he noticed something. The food had a faint shimmer to it that the other items didn't have. His engineering mind kicked in, analyzing the pattern. It looked like a chemical reaction, something that was breaking down the food's molecular structure. "Don't eat anything," he said urgently to Hae-rin. "I think some of this food has been poisoned." Before she could respond, a Torvan diplomat nearby suddenly collapsed, clutching his throat. Others started screaming. Within seconds, 5 more aliens fell, their bodies convulsing. Chaos erupted in the ballroom. Security rushed in and medical teams appeared with scanning equipment. Taesung watched as they checked the fallen aliens. All of them had eaten from the same section of the food table that he had been near. A security chief approached Hayrin. "Princess, we need to scan everyone who was near the contaminated food. There's a toxin that affects multiple species. We need to identify everyone who might have been exposed." Taesung stepped forward. "Scan me first." The security chief ran a device over Taesung's body. The device beeped rapidly and the chief's face went grim. "He's been exposed. The toxin is already in his system. We need to get him to medical immediately." "What toxin is it?" Hayrin demanded. "It's a compound specifically designed to target carbon-based life forms with certain genetic markers. It's highly illegal and usually used for assassinations. But Princess, there's something strange. The toxin has markers that suggest it was engineered to be especially lethal to humans." The words hit Taesung like a physical blow. This wasn't a random attack. Someone had tried to poison him specifically, and they had nearly succeeded. Hayrin grabbed his arm. "Come with me, now." She pulled him from the ballroom, moving so fast that the security team had to rush to keep up. They ran through corridors until they reached the secret laboratory. Dr. Jiwoo and Dr. Minseo were already there, having been alerted by emergency messages. "He's been poisoned with a human-specific toxin," Hayrin said breathlessly. "Can you treat him?" Dr. Minseo ran a scanner over Taesung. Her face went pale. "This is bad. The toxin is attacking his nervous system. Kilvar medicine won't work because it's designed for your biology, not ours. I have some human medical equipment, but I've never seen this specific toxin before." Taesung felt his hands starting to shake. The toxin was working fast. "How long do I have?" "Hours, maybe less. The toxin is accelerating as it spreads." Hayrin looked devastated. "There has to be something we can do." "There is," Dr. Jiwoo said quietly. "But it requires me to tell you a secret that could get us all executed." "Tell me," Hayrin commanded. "We've been working with a resistance movement of scientists across the Empire. When Dr. Minseo and the other humans were first captured by the Vraltek, some of their medical data was stolen. We retrieved that data through our network. We have extensive information on human biology, including how to create antidotes for toxins. Then make the antidote. It's not that simple," Dr. Minseo said. "The data we have is from research the Vraltek conducted on human prisoners. They tested various toxins and biological weapons on humans to understand your species' weaknesses. What we're looking at is probably one of those weapons. The implications were horrifying. The Vraltek had been experimenting on humans for months or even years. And someone in the palace had access to those weapons. I don't care how you do it," Hayrin said. "Save him." The next hours were a blur of pain for Taesung. The doctors worked frantically, synthesizing an antidote based on the stolen research data. Taesung could feel the toxin spreading through his body like fire in his veins. His vision blurred and his muscles spasmed uncontrollably. Through the pain, he heard Hayrin's voice. She was holding his hand, talking to him, keeping him conscious. "Stay with me, Taesung. You're too stubborn to die from poison. You survived the Vraltek, you survived my court, you can survive this. Why do you care so much?" he managed to ask through gritted teeth. "I'm just a human." "You're not just anything," Hayrin said fiercely. "When I saw you in that cell, refusing to break even when they tortured you, I saw something I'd never seen before. Hope. Real, genuine hope that things could be different. My empire has been the same for thousands of years. Everything is stagnant and dying. But you represented change. You represented the possibility that we could be better." "That's a lot of pressure to put on one person," Taesung said, trying to smile despite the pain. "I know. I'm sorry. But it's more than that now." She squeezed his hand. "I've spent weeks with you. I've seen how you think, how you solve problems, how you care about people even when you barely know them. You fixed Dr. Jiwoo's equipment because you wanted to help. You've been teaching Commander Hyun-soo new tactics not for your benefit, but because you believe in what we're trying to do. And you make me laugh, which no one at court has done in years." Taesung looked into her silver eyes and saw something there that made his heart race even faster than the poison did. She cared about him. Not as a tool or a symbol, but as a person. "I've got the antidote," Dr. Minseo suddenly shouted. They injected the antidote into Taesung's bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain began to fade, slowly at first, then more rapidly. His vision cleared and his breathing steadied. "It's working," Dr. Jiwoo said with relief. The toxin is being neutralized. Tae-sung lay back on the medical bed, exhausted but alive. Haerin still held his hand and she was crying. Tae-sung had never seen a Kilvar cry before. Their tears were silver and glowing like liquid starlight. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered. I'm harder to kill than I look, Tae-sung replied weakly. As he recovered over the next day, the pieces of the conspiracy became clearer. Minister Sang-woo had arranged the poisoning using toxins developed by the Vraltek. He had been feeding information to the Vraltek for months, helping them build a case against humans. His goal was to eliminate the human threat before they could disrupt the Empire's status quo. But Sang-woo, 3 days after Tae-sung's recovery, the attacks began. Explosions rocked the lower levels of the Imperial Palace. Reports flooded in of humans attacking Kilvar citizens in the streets. Security footage showed humans wielding weapons and destroying property with seemingly coordinated precision. Tae-sung watched the reports with growing horror. That's impossible. There are only a few dozen humans on this planet, and most of them are with Dr. Minseo's group. We would know if they were planning attacks. It's a setup, Haerin said grimly. This is exactly what Sang-woo and the Vraltek wanted. They're making it look like humans are violent insurgents. Emperor Young-ho called an emergency session of the court. Tae-sung stood beside Haerin as nobles shouted for action against the human threat. The security footage was played again and again, showing humans committing acts of violence. These creatures are savages, Prince Daehyun shouted. We should never have allowed them into our empire. They should be eliminated before they cause more damage. Wait, Tae-sung said loudly. Everyone turned to stare at him. It was highly unusual for a claimed being to speak in court without permission. May I examine the footage? Emperor Young-ho looked annoyed but nodded. Proceed. Tae-sung approached the holographic display and studied the attacking humans carefully. Something was wrong. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. Humans were improvisers by nature. Even trained soldiers showed individual variation in how they moved and fought. But these humans moved like they were following programmed instructions. Look at their eyes, Tae-sung said, pointing at the footage. They're not focused. They're staring straight ahead like they're not really seeing what's in front of them. And watch this one's movements. He walks directly into a wall and just stands there until someone redirects him. He replayed another section. Here, this woman is attacking a Silvar guard. But when he falls, she keeps hitting the same spot over and over. She's not adapting to the situation. She's following a command. Dr. Jiwoo stepped forward from the crowd. Your Majesty, if I may. I believe these humans are being controlled through neural manipulation. We've seen this technology before. The Vraltek developed it for controlling slave populations. Impossible, Minister Sang-woo said quickly. The Vraltek are our allies. They would never use such technology on our soil. Unless someone invited them to, Haerin said coldly. Someone who wanted to make humans look dangerous. Someone who has been conspiring with the Vraltek for months. She threw a data chip onto the floor in front of the throne. That chip contains evidence of communications between Minister Sang-woo and Vraltek officials. It shows money transfers, exchange of classified information, and plans to eliminate the human presence in our empire. It also shows that Sang-woo arranged for the poison that nearly killed Tae-sung. The court erupted in shouting. Sang-woo's face went pale, then red with anger. These are lies! Fabrications created by the princess to discredit me because I opposed her radical ideas. Then explain the communication logs, Commander Hyun-soo said, stepping forward. Explain the financial transfers. Explain how Vraltek technology ended up in the palace without authorization. Before Sang-woo could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the palace. A guard rushed into the throne room. Your Majesty, Vraltek ships have entered orbit without permission. They're demanding custody of all humans for extermination. They claim humans have proven too dangerous to exist. The timing was too perfect. This was the endgame of Sang-woo's plan. Frame humans as violent threats, then have the Vraltek arrive to eliminate them. The court would be so frightened that they would allow it. Human presence in galactic civilization would end before it truly began. We need to stop the controlled humans first, Tae-sung said urgently. If we can free them from the mind control and prove they were being manipulated, we can show the court this whole thing was a setup. How do you propose we do that? Emperor Young-ho demanded. I need access to the control signal. The Vraltek technology must be transmitting from somewhere in the palace. If I can find the source and disrupt it, the humans will wake up. This is madness, Prince Daehyun said. We should be defending the palace, not listening to this creature's theories. My son has a point, the Emperor said. Why should we trust the human? Because I'm the only one who understands how both human minds and alien technology work, Taesung replied. The Viraltech studied humans for months. They know our biology, but they don't understand how we think. They programmed us like we're computers, but human minds don't work like computers. We're messy and unpredictable. That's our advantage. Hayrin placed a hand on her father's throne. Father, please, give us a chance to prove this conspiracy. If Taesung is wrong, you can do whatever you want with the humans. But if he's right, we'll have exposed traitors at the heart of our empire. Emperor Young-ho was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. You have 1 hour. If you cannot stop the attacks by then, I will authorize extreme measures. Taesung, Hayrin, Commander Hyun-soo, and Dr. Ji-woo rushed from the throne room. They split up to cover more ground. Taesung headed to the lower levels where the attacks were concentrated, reasoning that the control signal must be strongest there. He found himself in maintenance tunnels similar to the ones he had crawled through on Belt 47. It felt like coming full circle. Here he was again, in the dark, trying to fix something broken while people's lives depended on his success. He used a scanner that Dr. Ji-woo had given him to track electromagnetic signals. The scanner showed dozens of signals crisscrossing the palace, but one stood out. It was broadcasting on a frequency that matched Viraltech technology, and it was coming from a storage room near the power generators. Taesung reached the room and found it guarded by 2 Viraltech soldiers. They raised their weapons when they saw him. Stop right there, human, one of them growled. Taesung raised his hands. I just want to talk. Your plan isn't going to work. We know about the mind control. We know about Sang-woo's conspiracy. Then you'll die knowing the truth, the soldier replied. Humans are too dangerous. You adapt too quickly. You learn too fast. If we allow your species to spread through the galaxy, you'll disrupt everything. Order will collapse into chaos. Maybe we need a little chaos, Taesung said. Your perfect order hasn't changed in thousands of years. You're so afraid of disruption that you've stopped growing. While he talked, Taesung had been slowly moving his hand toward his pocket. He had brought something with him, a small device he had built in the laboratory. It was crude, but it would create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt nearby electronics. The Viraltech soldier noticed the movement. Taesung activated the device. The pulse burst outward, and the soldier's weapons sparked and died. Their armor locked up. The electronic components fried. They fell to the ground, unable to move in their suddenly non-functional suits. Taesung rushed into the storage room. Inside, he found a large machine broadcasting the control signal. It was connected to the palace's power grid, using the building's own energy to control the humans throughout the complex. The machine was sophisticated, but Taesung had studied Viraltech technology for weeks now. He understood how they thought, how they built their systems. Everything was efficient but rigid. They never expected someone to approach a problem from an unexpected angle. He didn't try to shut down the machine properly. That would take too long and might have fail-safes. Instead, he overloaded it. He rerouted power from the main generators directly into the control unit, far more than it was designed to handle. The machine started sparking and smoking. Alarms wailed, and throughout the palace, controlled humans suddenly stopped moving. The control signal had been overwhelmed and destroyed. Taesung felt a surge of triumph, but it was short-lived. The door behind him burst open, and more Viraltech soldiers poured in. Behind them, Minister Sang-woo stood with a weapon in his hand. Clever human, Sang-woo said, but ultimately pointless. The Viraltech fleet is in orbit. Even if you've freed the controlled humans, it doesn't matter. My emperor will still authorize their elimination to prevent future threats. You're wrong, a voice said from behind Sang-woo. Emperor Young-ho stood there, flanked by palace guards. He had apparently followed them to see what would happen. I heard everything, the emperor said coldly to Sang-woo. Your confession. Your alliance with our enemies. Your willingness to betray our empire for your own vision of order. Sang-woo's face twisted with anger. You've become weak, Young-ho. You allow these humans to corrupt our culture. The old empire would never have tolerated such disruption. The old empire is dying, the emperor replied. Perhaps it's time we allowed ourselves to change. Guards, arrest the minister. As guards moved forward, Sang-woo raised his weapon toward Taesung. If I cannot stop all humans, I'll at least eliminate this one. Before he could fire, Heirin appeared in the doorway. She moved with incredible speed, crossing the distance between them in a heartbeat. She struck Sang-woo's arm and the weapon flew from his grip. The minister collapsed unconscious. "No one threatens what's mine," Heirin said firmly. Above the planet, Commander Hyun-soo's ship confronted the Vraltek fleet. With evidence of the conspiracy now proven, the Kilvar military had authorization to defend the trial of Minister Sang-woo lasted 3 weeks. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Communication logs, financial records, testimony from freed humans, and even confession from captured Vraltek operatives all pointed to a conspiracy that had lasted for years. Sang-woo had believed humans represented chaos that would destroy the ordered empire he had spent centuries building. In his mind, eliminating humanity was protecting civilization. The court found him guilty on all charges. He was stripped of his titles, his wealth, and sentenced to exile on a remote prison world. As guards led him away, he looked at Taesung one last time. "You've won this battle, human," Sang-woo said, "but change is dangerous. You'll see. Your species will bring chaos to everything you touch." "Maybe," Taesung replied, "but chaos isn't always bad. Sometimes things need to be shaken up before they can grow." With the conspiracy exposed, Emperor Young-ho faced difficult decisions about the empire's future. The revelation that his most trusted advisor had betrayed him shook the foundations of the court. Nobles who had supported Sang-woo's conservative faction found themselves under suspicion. The entire power structure was unstable. Heirin was called before her father in a private audience. Taesung waited outside, pacing nervously. When she finally emerged, her expression was complicated. "My father has offered me a position as his primary advisor," she said. "He wants me to help rebuild trust in the government. It's a tremendous opportunity. I would have real power to change things." "That's wonderful," Taesung said, though he noticed she didn't sound happy about it. "There's a condition," Heirin continued. "I would need to release my claim on you. The court believes my attachment to you clouds my judgment. They want me to prove my loyalty is to the Empire first." Taesung felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. After everything they'd been through, after the connection that had grown between them, the court wanted to separate them. And Heirin had the chance to achieve everything she'd been working toward, but only if she let him go. "You should take it," he said quietly. "This is your chance to change your empire from the inside. Don't give that up for me." Heirin looked at him with her silver eyes shining. "I told my father no." "What?" "I refused his offer. I told him that if the court cannot accept that I care about a human, then I don't want their positions or their power. I proposed something different instead." She led him to the throne room where Emperor Young-ho waited. The emperor looked tired but also somehow younger than before, as if the weight of his advisor's betrayal had also lifted some burden he'd been carrying. "Taesung," the emperor said, "my daughter has made an interesting proposal. I want to hear your thoughts on it." Heirin stepped forward. "I propose the creation of a new position within our government. Ambassador of Variable Species. This person would be responsible for integrating humans and other adaptable species into galactic civilization. They would work to break down the rigid caste systems that have kept our empire stagnant. They would be independent of the court's politics and answer only to the emperor." "And you believe you should hold this position?" the emperor asked. "Yes, I've spent months studying humans. I understand their potential and their vulnerabilities. I know how to bridge the gap between our cultures. And I have connections with progressive elements throughout the empire who want change." The emperor turned to Taesung. "What about you? Would you support this?" "I would," Taesung said. "But only if humans are treated as equals, not subjects. We're not a species that does well being ruled by others. We need partnership, not domination." "Fair enough," the emperor replied. "I accept your proposal, Heirin. You will be our first ambassador of variable species. Your mission is to establish formal relations between the Kilvar Empire and Earth. You will negotiate a treaty that protects human interests while bringing their unique perspectives into our civilization." Heirin bowed deeply. "Thank you, Father." "Don't thank me yet," he said dryly. "This is perhaps the most difficult job in the Empire. You'll face opposition from every traditional faction. You'll be blamed for any problems that arise, and you'll have to prove that humans are worth the risk we're taking." "I understand." The Emperor's expression softened slightly. "I also understand that you have developed feelings for this human. I cannot say I approve, but I won't forbid it. Your personal life is your own, as long as it doesn't interfere with your duties. Over the next few months, dramatic changes swept through the empire. Hayrin established the first embassy for human relations, bringing together freed captives, volunteers from Earth, and Kilvar citizens interested in cultural exchange. Dr. Minzio became the head of human medical services, ensuring that humans in Kilvar space received proper care. Commander Hyun-Soo reorganized her military unit to include human tactical advisors, creating the first mixed-species combat force in the Empire's history. Tae-sung worked as Hayrin's primary liaison with Earth. He helped negotiate the treaty that would govern human-Kilvar relations. It was hard work, translating between two very different cultures, but it was also rewarding. He watched as prejudices began to break down on both sides. Earth's government was cautiously optimistic about the alliance. Having the protection of a powerful empire meant humans could explore space without fear of being captured or exploited. In return, Earth would provide innovation, new perspectives, and access to human adaptability for solving problems the empire had struggled with for centuries. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Prince Dae-hyun continued to oppose human integration, though his power had diminished significantly after the conspiracy. Conservative nobles worked to slow down every reform. Some Kilvar citizens feared that human influence would destroy their culture. But there were victories too. A human engineer named Jin Ho solved a power distribution problem that had plagued the capital city for decades. A human teacher named Soo Jin started a school that taught both Kilvar and human children together, breaking down prejudices at a young age. A human artist named Hyoseok created sculptures that blended Earth and Kilvar aesthetics, showing that both cultures had beauty to offer. 6 months after the conspiracy was exposed, Hayrin and Tae-sung stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Human ships were visible in the sky now, arriving with delegations, traders, and families willing to settle in Kilvar space. It was the beginning of something new. "Sometimes I can't believe this is real," Tae-sung said. 6 months ago I was fixing broken equipment on a mining colony. Now I'm helping negotiate the future of human-alien relations. Life changes quickly when you stop accepting that things must stay the same, Hayrin replied. "Do you regret your decision? Turning down your father's offer?" "Never." She turned to face him. "That position would have given me power, but it would have been power to maintain the system. What I'm doing now is helping to change the system. That's far more important, even if it's harder, especially because it's harder. Nothing worth doing is easy." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the ships move across the sky. Finally, Tae-sung asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. "What are we, Hayrin? I know you claimed me to save my life. I know we've become partners in this work. But what are we to each other?" She took his hand, her skin cool against his. "What do you want us to be?" "I want us to be us," Tae-sung said. "Not princess and claimed human. Not ambassador and liaison. Just Hayrin and Tae-sung. Two people who care about each other. That's what I want too," she said softly. "But you should know my people mate for life. If we become what I think you're suggesting, it's forever. No turning back. No changing your mind when things get difficult." Tae-sung laughed. "I fixed equipment in space during emergencies. I survived Vraltek captivity. I disrupted an empire's political structure. I think I can handle a long-term relationship." "You say that now?" Hayrin teased. "Wait until you see me when I haven't slept for 2 days because of treaty negotiations. I look forward to it." She leaned down and kissed him. It was gentle and sweet, and it felt like coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, Hayrin smiled. "I should warn you, the court is going to be scandalized. A princess in a relationship with a human. There will be gossip and criticism." "Good," Tae-sung replied. "Let them gossip. Let them see that humans and Kilvar can be more than allies. We can be family." A message alert interrupted their moment. Hayrin checked her communication device and her expression became serious. "What is it?" Tae-sung asked. "A delegation from Earth has arrived. They want to hold the first joint assembly between human and Kilvar representatives. They want us to speak about the future of our alliance. Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Hayrin admitted. "This could determine the relationship between our species for generations."
"What if I say the wrong thing?"
"What if humans and Kilvar can't find common ground?" Tae-sung squeezed her hand. "We'll face it together. That's how we've gotten this far. That's how we'll continue." They walked into the assembly hall hand in hand. The room was filled with representatives from both species. Humans in Earth's official delegation uniforms sat beside Kilvar nobles in traditional robes.